Welcome back, everyone, to another ACFCS Tip of the Week. I'm Brian Monroe, Vice President of Content here at ACFCS. Massive news going on this week related to a billion-dollar Russian money laundering scam uncovered by the Organized Crime and Corruption Reporting Project. Now let's get into some of these details. Dubbed the Troika Laundromat, this is the latest in a series of reports on how the trillions of dollars in a year in illicit profits are laundered. Now, the OCCRP, the reporting project, they've also done pieces on Russian and Azerbaijani laundromats. Now, this is the same group, as you all, I'm sure, remember, behind the Panama Papers, the Paradise Papers. Those were historic leaks that really cracked open a lot of the largest secrecy havens and gave insight into the shadowy owners behind them. Now, what is also equally to me as interesting is the banks that are involved. Now, apparently this was run by Troika Dialogue. This was once Russia's largest private bank, but as you go through the reporting, there are some of the biggest banks in Europe and the United States that are a part of this. Just some of the names in here. Now, we're not saying these banks did anything wrong. These are the banks named, which again, potentially could have their compliance programs looked at for any miscontrols. So you have Danske Bank, which has been in the news a lot lately, Swedbank, Nordea Bank, ING, Credit Agricole, KBC Group, Raiffeisen, ABN AMRO, Rabobank, and at home here, Citi. Now, an interesting little detail here, many of these banks have had run-ins with regulators in the US or their home countries, either formal AML actions and even penalties. So let's kind of delve into some of these quotes from the actual report. The laundromat gave free rein to a cabal of, quote, Russian oligarchs and politicians to secretly acquire shares in state-owned companies, to buy real estate, both in Russia and abroad, to purchase luxury yachts, to hire music superstars for private parties, to pay medical bills, and much more. Now, mind you, the tendrils of this money laundering mechanism, even the corruption, went to the highest echelons of Russian society, to Putin's cronies, apparently. So this is something that a lot of people have to be looking at. Now, how this was all discovered was actually a leak of banking transactions, potentially one of the largest ever. So the data, which was compiled from multiple sources, represents one of the largest releases of banking information ever, involving more than $470 billion, sent in 1.3 million leaked transactions from 233,000 companies. So one of the takeaways I hear from this, okay, so this is basically oversight of correspondent networks. This is an issue right now in the US. US federal and state regulators in recent exams cycles have made how domestic and foreign banks oversee their correspondent networks a top priority, with many enforcement actions and penalties citing failures in this hot button AML compliance area. So in the case of the Troika Laundromat, the project stated that there were at least 75 shell companies and related financial institutions forming a complex financial web which functioned from 2006 to early 2013. Now you're probably wondering how much money was flowing between these. Well, over that period, Troika, quote, enabled the flow of $4.6 billion into this laundering system and directed the flow of nearly $5 billion, $4.8 billion out. So according to that, when one of the shell companies even sent funds earmarked as charitable contributions for a fundraising vehicle tied to Prince Charles. Now, when you hear stories like this, one of the main things as a compliance professional you want to know is how you are tied to this. How might there be a direct or indirect connection from your institution to any of the institutions tied directly to this, or even the oversight of your correspondent network, because that is what regulators are going to ask. Do you know their controls? Do you know roughly the risk of their population and the jurisdictions that you're doing business with? So everyone, this is going to leave you with a lot to chew on, a lot to dive into, a lot to see what connections are tied to this. But we also just want to make sure that you are aware of this report, as it is a dynamite report that directly has direct import to your AML risk, your country risk, and your transactional risk when looking at kind of your overall compliance program and the institutions you are connected with. Now, If you have any questions on ACFCS, the association, the certification, training, the incredible array of member benefits, please go to acfcs.org. Until next time.